And we're live and recording.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our morning book buzz for May on this sunny, warm day in New York City, which we haven't gotten to say very often this year. We are so happy that you're with us today. Rachel and I were just talking about how neither one of us has done this in a while, so hopefully we remember what we're doing. So I'm going to let my co-hosts today introduce themselves, but first I'm going to tell you what I'm reading right now. I am reading, well, actually, in my picture there, I'm reading The Frozen River, which I absolutely loved. It was incredible historical fiction, and I highly recommend it for book clubs. We just actually talked about it in my book club last night, and we had a great discussion. And also, I'm going to cheat and show you oh, the new J. Courtney Sullivan, The Cliffs. I'm in the middle of this right now. I always love Courtney Sullivan's books, and I'm really interested to see how this one ends. So I cheated with the second recommendation.
Oh,
Sharnell?
oh, shucks. Go ahead.
I, oh,
Hi.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I just got finished listening to The Husbands, and oh, by the way, I'm Sharnell. And I absolutely loved it. I went into it with no expectations at all. Um, and it really surprised me how much I liked it. So I definitely recommend this one for sure.
Great.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel, and I'm currently reading Like Mother, Like Daughter by Kimberly McCreight. It's a suspense thriller and perfect for fans of Gillian Flynn and Jodi Picoult. And Kimberly was actually at our author tea at PLA, and she was just delightful. And to also throw in a little plug that Like Mother, Like Daughter is Hall of Fame eligible for library reads. So whenever you're casting those votes, would highly recommend checking it out.
Great. Thanks, guys. It's funny. When we hear a book is great around the office, I like your hesitation, Charnel, because everyone keeps talking about The Husbands. And so our expectations, we try to tame them as much as everybody else does. So I'm glad that the book is living up to its expectations. I can't wait to read that one too.
You'll
So
have to
just
let
a
me know what you think.
reminder. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I said you'll have to let me know what you think.
Yes, I definitely will. And just a reminder of our little key here with our little abbreviations. When you see these abbreviations on the books, it just means what formats they're available in, like hardcover, trade paperback, etc. So we hope you will look at them in all formats.
Okay, so we are headed to sunny San Diego. So let us know if you'll be attending ALA Annual 2024, and we'll add you to our special event mailing list. We have a form you can fill out, and while the link is on the screen, please don't worry about writing it down. You certainly can, but you will all receive a copy of this presentation as well as all of the links we discussed today, so you can sit back and relax, and hopefully we see you all in San Diego.
So last week we had our Spring Book and Author Festival. We had some amazing panels, and there were lots of goodies that were available to everyone. If you weren't able to attend, do not fret, because we have everything still up online. So if you haven't registered for the event, go ahead and register, and then you'll have access to the exhibit hall, all the resources, and the recordings of all of the panels. And then join us at more virtual events. We've got the Library Journal Day of Dialogue on May 9th and the School Library Journal Day of Dialogue on May 23rd. You will get to hear straight from the top authors about their new books and what inspired them, what their process is, and more. Plus, you can visit the virtual exhibit halls there and download some free resources and chat with the reps. And talk to some of the authors in a more intimate setting. So we hope to see you there.
And if you're not following us on socials, please do. We post reading recommendations, event information, news in the library world, giveaways, and so much more. So make sure you're keeping up with us at PRH Library for our library folks and at Bar Read Repeat for patrons. And now on to the books. We're kicking off today's presentation with some literary magic. And first up, we have The Full Moon Coffee Shop by Mei Mochizuki. This is translated from the Japanese bestseller, and it's a charming and magical novel inspired by the myth of cats, returning favors to those who care for them, and reminds us that it's never too late to follow our stars. In Japan, cats are a symbol of good luck, and as the myth goes, if you're kind to them, they'll one day return the favor. And if you're kind to the right cat, you might just find yourself invited to a mysterious coffee shop under a glittering Kyoto moon. And this particular coffee shop is like no other. It has no fixed location, no fixed hours, and seemingly appears at random to adrift young people at crucial junctions in their lives. And it's also run by talking cats. This is for fans of heartwarming Japanese fiction like Before the Coffee Gets Cold series and The Traveling Cat Chronicles.
And then next we have The Life Impossible by Matt Haig. This is the remarkable next novel from the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Midnight Library, which sold more than 9 million copies worldwide. So, when retired math teacher Grace Winters is left a rundown house on a Mediterranean island by a long lost friend, curiosity gets the better of her. She arrives in Ibiza with a one-way ticket, no guidebook, and no plan. Among the rugged hills and golden beaches of the island, Grace searches for answers about her friend's life and how it ended. What she uncovers is stranger than she could have ever dreamed. But to dive into this impossible truth, Grace must first come to terms with her past. Filled with wonder and wild adventure, this is a story of hope and the life changing power of a new beginning. And fun fact, the TV show adaptation of How to Stop Time is about to start filming with Benedict Cumberbatch as the lead, and Studio Canal has obtained the rights to adapt the Midnight Library into a movie. So keep an eye out for that. Very exciting,
Wow, very exciting.
right?
Okay, we're moving on to some Shakespeare-inspired titles. First up, we have Lady Macbeth by Ava Reed. From the #1 New York Times bestselling author, Ava Reed, comes a reimagining of Lady Macbeth, Shakespeare's most famous villainess, giving her a voice, a past, and a power that transforms the story men have written for her. This feminist retelling will resonate with readers, much like Circe, Ariadne, and The Witch's Heart. Lady Macbeth reimagines a story from classic literature, centering a female character unfairly painted as a villain for centuries, and re envisioning her as a heroine resisting the patriarchy. This is also a great title for fans of Ava Reed's previous fairy tale retellings and Gothic novels like The Wolf and the Woodsman and Juniper and Thorn. I love Ava's books. I've been reading them for years, and she was a recent panelist at our Spring Book Fest, so I highly recommend going back into that virtual environment and checking out her panel if you haven't watched it.
Next up is an author that needs no introduction, Jodi Picoult. Before I talk about her new book, I'm just going to go back to say The Frozen River, also Shakespeare inspired. So Shakespeare all over the place. It's fun. So Jodi Picoult needs no introduction. As a matter of fact, she's had 12 consecutive #1 New York Times bestsellers, which is not an easy task. This is a new novel about two women centuries apart, one of whom is the real author of Shakespeare's plays. And they are both forced to hide behind another name. Young playwright Melina Green has just written a new work inspired by the life of her Elizabethan ancestor Amelia Bassano. But seeing it performed is unlikely in a theater world where the playing field isn't level for women. As Melina wonders if she dares risk failure again, her best friend takes the decision out of her hands and submits the play to a festival under a male pseudonym. In 1581, young Amelia Bassano is a ward of English aristocrats. Her lessons on language, history, and writing have endowed her with a sharp wit and a gift for storytelling. But like most women of her day, she is allowed no voice of her own. Forced to become a mistress to the Lord Chamberlain, who oversees all theatre productions in England, Amelia sees firsthand how the words of playwrights can move an audience. She begins to form a plan to secretly bring a play of her own to the stage by paying an actor named William Shakespeare to front her work. Told in intertwining timelines by any other name is a sweeping tale of ambition, courage, and desire that centers on two women who are determined to create something beautiful despite the prejudices they face.
That one sounds really cool.
I know.
Um,
Doesn't it sound fun?
yeah, as always, have to add that one to the list. Now, up next, we have 5 book club picks that we think you'll love. First being Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. 3 estranged sisters return to their family home in New York after their beloved sister's death in this unforgettable story of grief, hope, and the complexities of families, from the acclaimed author of Cleopatra and Frankenstein. The 3 Blue sisters are exceptional and exceptionally different. Avery, the eldest, and a recovering heroin addict turned straight-laced lawyer, lives with her wife in London. Bonnie, a former boxer, works as a bouncer in Los Angeles following a devastating defeat. And Lucky, the youngest, models in Paris while trying to outrun her hard partying ways. They also had a 4th sister, Nikki, whose unexpected death left the family reeling. A year later, as they each navigate grief, addiction, and ambition, they find they must return to New York to stop the sale of the apartment they were raised in. But coming home is never as easy as it seems, and as the sisters reckon with the disappointments of their childhood and the loss of the only person who held them together, they realize the greatest secrets they've been keeping might not have been from each other, but from themselves. Imbued with Coco Mellor's signature combination of humor and heart, Blue Sisters is a story of what it takes to keep living after loss and ultimately to fall in love with life again.
Next up from us is we're very excited to talk about a book from Ed Burns. Many of you might know him from his roles in Saving Private Ryan or The Brothers McMullen. He's made 14 feature films as a writer, director, and actor. I think many of us remember him from Cameron Diaz punching him in The Holiday. But I love him. We're excited. We are going to be bringing him to ALA Annual this year, so hopefully many of you will get a chance to meet him there. But this is his first novel, and it's about an Irish-American family, and it comes to life through the eyes of a 13-year-old boy. And it opens at a wake, which any good Irish story does, of his as the 12-year-old narrator and an aspiring writer takes in the death of his beloved grandfather Pop, a larger-than-life figure, and he is dealing with this loss, and he's writing about it as a 13-year-old boy. The overflowing crowd includes sandhogs in their muddy work boots, old Irish biddies in black dresses, and cops in uniform, along with the family in mourning. There's an open casket. It's the first time he's ever seen a dead person. And then later, across the street at the bar, he tells a story to the assembled crowd about the day his dad proposed to his mom and how he almost got beat up by her brothers for it, and then how Pop made him propose twice. These stories cascade between the prior generation's colorful origins in the Bronx and the softer world of Gibson, the town on Long Island where the family lives now. Out of all these individual struggles, there's a collective warmth that emerges, a certain kind of American story that's loud and boisterous and joyful. So we're really excited to bring this book to you from Seven Stories Press.
Very exciting. And up next, we have an author that needs no introduction, truly. But we have Here One Moment by Leon Moriarty. This is a thought-provoking new novel from the blockbuster best-selling author that asks, if you knew your future, would you try to fight fate? So, aside from a delay, there will be no problems. The flight will be smooth. It will land safely. Everyone who gets on the plane will get off, but almost all of them will be forever changed. Because on this ordinary, short, domestic flight, something extraordinary happens. People learn how and when they're going to die. And for some, their death is far in the future, but for 6 passengers, their predicted deaths are not far away at all. This new novel is for the millions of Leon Moriarty's readers, including those who tuned into the major TV adaptations of Big Little Lies and Nine Perfect Strangers, and perfect for fans of captivating fiction from other celebrated authors like Jodi Picoult and Celeste Ng. So we are extremely excited for this new novel.
Yeah, I definitely can't wait to read that one. It sounds so good. Next, we have The Paris Understudy by Arlie Thiel. This powerful debut novel brings to life the hard choices Parisians made or failed to make under Nazi occupation in the tradition of Pam Jenoff and Fiona Davis. It's 1938. Paris opera legend Madeleine Moreau must keep newcomer Yvonne Ch- Chevalier, whose talent she fears, off the stage. As the long-standing star of opera, she is nowhere near ready to give up her spotlight. The perfect solution? Enlist Yvonne as her understudy so she can never be upstaged. But when Madeline is invited to headline at Germany's preeminent opera festival, she is sure this will cement her legacy. But war is looming, and when she learns that Adolf Hitler himself will be in attendance, she knows she's made a grave error. As Madeline makes a hurried escape back to France, Yvonne finds herself unexpectedly thrown into the limelight on the German stage. When a newspaper photograph shows Hitler seemingly enraptured by Yvonne, Yvonne's life is upended. When she is or while she's trying to frantically repair her reputation at home, Yvonne's son is captured and held as a prisoner of war. Despite or desperate to free her son, she makes an impossible choice: turn to the enemy. As the Nazis invade Paris, both women must decide what they're willing to do in pursuit of their art. They form an unlikely alliance, using their fame to protect themselves and the people they love from the maelstrom of history. Painting an enrapturing portrait of resilient wartime women, The Paris Understudy is a love letter to the arts and a stark depiction of the choices we make to survive. And this one's great for fans of Kate Quinn and Kristen Harmel.
I love that cover. It's where I wish I was standing right now. Entitlement. This is a great book club book. There's a lot of philosophical, like ethical things to discuss. I love a book like that. It's a novel of money and morality from the New York Times bestselling author of Leave the World Behind. Brooke wants. She isn't in need, but there are things she wants. A sense of purpose, for instance. She wants to make a difference in the world, to impress her mother along the way, to spend time with friends, and secure her independence. Her job assisting an octogenarian billionaire in his quest to give away a vast fortune could help her achieve many of these goals. It may inspire new desires as well. Proximity to wealth turns out to be nothing less than transformative. What is money really but a kind of belief? It's taught, unsettling, and alive in this seductive book about the distortions of money. Entitlement is a riveting tale for our new Gilded Age, a story that confidently considers questions about need and worth, race and privilege, philanthropy and generosity, passion and obsession. It is a provocative, propulsive novel about the American imagination. Um, and it's also, this author writes a great book, and his last book got such great reviews. So it's like the kind of book that you're going to want to keep reading and reading and reading and really want to talk about with friends. So we're really excited about this, and also probably will become a blockbuster Netflix success like the last one he wrote, Leave the World Behind. So we're really excited about this one.
Okay, next up we have some new nonfiction, and first up we have The 1619 Project, a visual experience by Nicole Hannah-Jones and the New York Times Magazine. So this is an exciting illustrated edition of the 1619 Project with newly commissioned artwork and archival images. Curated by the editors of the New York Times Magazine and led by Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones, This illustrated edition of the 1619 Project features 7 chapters from the original book that lend themselves to beautiful, engaging visuals, deepening the experience of the content. It's filled with original art by 13 Black artists on the themes of resistance and freedom, a brand new photo essay about slave auction sites, vivid photos of Black Americans celebrating their own forms of patriotism, and a collection of archival images of Black families by Black photographers. This gorgeous volume offers readers a dynamic new way of experiencing the impact of the 1619 Project. So we're very excited for this new edition.
Next up is Nexus, a brief history of information networks from the Stone Age to AI. It's from the New York Times bestselling author of Sapiens. For the last 100,000 years, we sapiens have accumulated enormous power. But despite all of our discoveries, inventions, and conquests, we now find ourselves in an existential crisis. The world is on the verge of ecological collapse. Misinformation abounds, and we are rushing headlong into the age of AI, a new information network that threatens to annihilate us. For all that we have accomplished, why are we so self-destructive? Nexus looks through the long lens of human history to consider how the flow of information has shaped us and our world. Harari explores how different societies and political systems throughout history have wielded information to achieve their goals, for good and ill. And he addresses the urgent choices we face as non-human intelligence threatens our very existence. Information is not the raw material of truth, neither is it a mere weapon. Nexus explores the hopeful middle ground between these two extremes, and in doing so, rediscovers our shared humanity. It's a perfectly timely book, and I'm sure it's going to make a lot of great discussion.
Okay, perfect for history buffs. Next up, we have The Siege, a 6-day hostage crisis and the daring special forces operation that shocked the world by Ben McIntyre. The definitive inside story of the infamous 1980 siege on the Iranian embassy in London, from the New York Times bestselling author of Operation Mincemeat and The Spy and the Traitor. True-life espionage master Ben McIntyre takes readers on a thrilling TikTok recounting one of the most daring rescue attempts of our time, as the American hostage crisis in Iran boiled into its 7th month in the spring of 1980. 6 heavily armed gunmen barged into the Iranian embassy in London, taking 26 hostages. What followed over the next 6 days was an increasingly tense standoff, one that threatened at any moment to spill into a bloodbath. This is for readers of gripping narrative nonfiction about the Middle East, the Islamic State, and ISIS, like Joby Warwick's Black Flags and Robert Worth's A Rage for Order. And next we have On Freedom by Timothy Snyder. This is a brilliant exploration of freedom, what it is, how it's been misunderstood, and why it's our only chance for survival by the acclaimed Yale historian and author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, On Tyranny. Snyder is one of our foremost public intellectuals. His insightful analysis have made his books into bestsellers, netting over 1.5 million copies to date across all formats. And this is great for fans of intellectual historians with a philosophical approach like Jill Lepore, Steven Pinker, and Yuval Noah Harari. And Timothy Snyder will also be on a panel at Day of Dialogue, so make sure you register so you can watch him as well.
Next up is The Barn, The Secret History of a Murder in Mississippi by Wright Thompson. This is a hard book, honestly. A shocking and revelatory account of the murder of Emmett Till, laying bare the global forces that converged on the Mississippi Delta and the disgraceful ongoing cover-up of the crime's full scope and ramifications. Wright Thompson's family actually only lives 23 miles from the site of one of the most notorious and consequential killings in American history. Yet he learned of it only after he left for college, after he was out of the state completely. To this day, fundamental truths about the crime are hidden and unknown, including where it took place and how many people were involved. This is no accident. The cover-up began at once, and it is ongoing. Even in the context of the racist caste regime of the time, the 4-hour torture and murder of a Black boy barely in his teens, only for whistling at a young white woman, was actually depraved. The decision by Till's mother, Mamie Till Mobley, to keep the casket open seared the crime indelibly into American consciousness. Thompson has a deep understanding of the world of the families of Emmett Till and of his killers, as well as the forces that aligned to place them together on the spot on that map. As he shows, this is a story about property, money, power, and white supremacy that implicates us all. Putting the killing floor of the barn on the map of Township 22 North, Range 4 West, the Delta, and America is a way of mapping the road this country must travel if we are to heal our oldest, deepest wounds. This is for fans of Flowers of the Keller Moon and other true crime stories. And this is also from Wright Thompson, whose Pappyland sold over 150,000 copies across all formats. And it will publish on the eve of the 70th anniversary of Emmett Till's murder. Okay, it's always so weird to switch gears. So now we're into historical fiction, and we are excited. We love historical fiction, obviously. We all were talking about it before. And this first one is The Volcano Daughters, a searingly original debut about two sisters and their flight from genocide, which takes them from Hollywood to Paris to San Francisco's Cannery Row, each haunted along the way by the ghosts of their murdered friends who are not yet done telling their stories. El Salvador, 1923, Graciela, a young woman growing up on a volcano in a community of indigenous women, is summoned to the capital, where she is claimed as an oracle for a rising dictator. There she meets Consuelo, the sister she has never known, who was stolen from their home before she was born. The two spend years under the cruel El Gran Pajando's regime, unwillingly helping his reign of terror until genocide strikes the community from which they hail. Each believing the other to be dead, they escape, fleeing across the globe, reinventing themselves until fate ultimately brings them back together in the most unlikely ways. Endlessly surprising, vividly imaginative, and bursting with lush life, the Volcano Sisters charts a new history and mythology of El Salvador, fiercely bringing forth voices that have been calling out for generations.
Next, we have Black Butterflies by Priscilla Morris. This was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction. It is a timeless story of strife and hope set during the conflict in the Balkans in the early 90s. A searing debut novel about a woman who faces the war on her doorstep with courage, fierceness, and an unshakable belief in the power of art. Each night, nationalist gangs erect makeshift barricades, splitting the city into ethnic enclaves. Each morning, the people who live there, whether Muslim, Croat, or Serb, push the barriers aside. When violence erupts and becomes finally unavoidable, Zora, an artist and teacher, sends her husband and elderly mother to safety in England. She stays behind, reluctant to believe that hostilities will last more than a few weeks. As the city falls under siege, everything she loves about her home is laid to waste, black ashes floating over the rooftops. And yet, Zora and her friends find ways to rebuild themselves over and over. Told with breathtaking immediacy, this is a story of disintegration, resilience, and hope, a stirring debut from a commanding new voice.
Sorry. There are Rivers in the Sky, by Alif Shafak. Sweeping across centuries and stretching from Mesopotamia to London, this enchanting new novel by a Booker Prize finalist conjures a trio of characters living in the shadow of one of the greatest epic poems of all time. In 1840 London, Arthur is born beside the sinking sewage-filled River Thames. With an abusive alcoholic father and a mentally ill mother, Arthur's only chance of escaping destitution is his brilliant memory. When his gift earns him a spot as an apprentice at a leading publisher, Arthur's world opens up far beyond the slums, and one book in particular catches his interest: Nineveh and its Remains. In 2014 Turkey, Narin, a 10-year-old Yazidi girl, is diagnosed with a rare disorder that will soon cause her to go deaf. Before that happens, her grandmother is determined to baptize her in a sacred Iraqi temple. With the rising presence of ISIS and the destruction of the family's ancestral lands along Tigris, Narin is running out of time. Then in 2018 London, the newly divorced Zalika, a hydrologist, moves into a houseboat on the Thames to escape her husband. Orphaned and raised by her wealthy uncle, Zalika had made the decision to take her own life in 1 month, until a curious book about her homeland changes everything. A dazzling feat of storytelling, There Are Rivers in the Sky entwines these outsiders with a single drop of water, a drop which re-manifests across centuries, both the source of life and harbinger of death. Rivers, the Tigris and the Thames, transcend history, transcend fate. Water remembers, it is humans who forget.
All right. And next we have Eleanor of Avignon by Elizabeth Delosier. This is a gorgeously drawn debut full of captivating historical drama and rich with unforgettable characters. Eleanor of Avignon is the story of a woman who is unwilling to bend to the limitations her society places upon her when she becomes the unlikely apprentice to the Pope's physician at the most challenging and dangerous moment in medieval European history. This novel has a fresh historical backdrop for readers looking for something new in historical fiction. This debut author draws an incredibly accessible and well-researched medieval France, touching on many real events from the arrival of the bubonic plague in Europe um, to Clement Clement the Sixth and Guy de Chauliac's efforts against the disease. And this is perfect for fans of upmarket historical fiction, medieval settings, and stories of women ahead of their time. And it's also great for readers who loved Lauren Groff's Matrix and Chris Bojalian's The Hour of the Witch, as well as Maggie O'Farrell's Hamnet.
Now we've got some inspirational true stories. Up first is Upworthy Good People by Gabrielle Rylick. For anyone who needs proof that the world is full of good people, this beautifully illustrated book features 101 feel-good stories from Upworthy, the beloved social media platform where millions go to seek inspiration. Good People is a much-needed trove of life-affirming stories told straight from the heart. Handpicked by Upworthy's community of millions, each piece speaks with the breadth, depth, and beauty of the human experience. With proof that decency surrounds each and every one of us, Upworthy's first book is a perspective-changing solve that will leave even the most unlikely reader feeling better about the world. Rippling with wit, compassion, and courage, each chapter offers a restorative opportunity to believe in people's fundamental goodness.
I'm really excited about this Upworthy book. I've heard so much about it. Undivided, The Quest for Racial Solidarity in an American Church. In 2016, even as Ohio helped deliver victory to presidential candidate Donald Trump, Cincinnati voters also passed a ballot initiative for universal preschool. The margin was so large that many who elected Trump must have, paradoxically, also voted for the initiative. How could the same citizens support such philosophically disparate aims? What had convinced residents of this Midwestern Rust Belt community to raise their own taxes to provide early childhood education focused on the poorest and mostly Black communities? When political scientist Harry Hahn set out to answer that question, her investigations led straight to an unlikely origin: the white-dominated evangelical megachurch Crossroads, where Pastor Chuck Mingo had delivered a sermon the prior year that set in motion a chain of surprising events. Raised in the Black church, Mingo felt called by God, he told the Crossroads parishioners, to combat racial injustice and to do it through the very church in which they were gathered. The result was Undivided, a faith-based program designed to foster anti-racism and systemic change. The creators of Undivided recognize that any effort to combat racial injustice must move beyond recognizing and overcoming individual prejudices. Real change would have to be radical from the very roots. We're excited for this book to come out in September.
Okay, and next we have What in the World? A Southern Woman's Guide to Laughing at Life's Unexpected Curveballs by Leanne Morgan. The Mrs. Maisel of Appalachia packs a hilarious punch with real talk about what it's like to be a woman today, from rebelling against the latest diet trends to dealing with perimenopausal mean girls and attending rock concerts in middle age. Equal parts warm and hilarious, this book is a must read by one of comedy's rising stars, reminding you that every time life leaves you asking, what in the world, something good is bound to come out of it someday. This is perfect for Leanne Morgan's existing fans. If you've seen her Netflix special, it's hilarious. And fans of comedians like Kim Gravel, Jim Gaffigan, Nate Bargatze, who appreciate good-natured takes on everyday life. And if you were lucky enough to attend TLA, you may have seen her keynote speech, which I'm told was fantastic.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did not attend the event, but everyone who came to the booth at TLA talked about how wonderful she was and how funny. And just a little tidbit, this is, for some reason, I just think this is hilarious. One of our team members was, helping her for her speech engagement, and she told her that she had a beautiful hairline, and I was like, wow, that's a great compliment, something that I've never heard before, but it will stick with me. So that was great.
Yeah, she's truly one of the sweetest people ever.
Yeah. So now on to Fantasy Finds. First, we have She Who Knows by Nnedi Okorafor. This is a captivating blend of science fiction, fantasy, and West African culture, and it's set in the same universe as the World Fantasy Award-winning novel Who Fears Death. And this novella follows Najiba, a 13-year-old girl who unexpectedly receives the call, a phenomenon typically reserved for men and boys. Joining her father and brothers on a journey to the Dead Lake, Najiba's presence brings about unforeseen consequences that forever change her family. This intimate tale marks the beginning of the Caponiango sorceress and leaves readers eagerly anticipating the next installments of this trilogy.
This is my final book, which is called Final Cut. And I will say my books were all over the place today. Final Cut by Charles Burns. Reading this description actually is giving me the chills. So I'm going to go through it. You can picture it as you go. It's a graphic novel coming from Pantheon in September. As a child, Brian and his friend Jimmy would make sci-fi films in their yards, convincing their friends to star as victims of grisly murders, smearing lipstick on the bodies to simulate blood. Now a talented artist and aspiring filmmaker, Brian, along with Jimmy's friends Tina and Lori, his reluctant muse, sets off to a remote cabin, never good, in the woods with an old 8mm camera to make a true sci-fi horror movie, an homage to Brian's favorite movie, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But as Brian's affections for Lori go seemingly unreciprocated, Brian writes and draws himself into a fantasy where she is the girl of his dreams, his damsel in distress, and his savior wrapped into one. Rife with references to classic sci-fi and horror films, and filled with panels of stunning depictions of nature, film, and the surreal, Burns blurs the line between Brian's dreams and reality. Imagination and perception. Is a master of the form of his finest. Final Cut is an astonishing look at what it means to truly express oneself through art. It's Burns' first standalone graphic work since the beloved and masterful Black Hole, and he returns to the dynamic and explosive storytelling for which he is known, sure to appeal to both longtime fans and new enthusiasts alike.
Speaking of horror.
Yeah, sorry. So on our horror and horror for weenies, we've got William by Mason Coyle. Um, Psychological horror meets cyber noir in this delicious one-sitting read, a haunted house story in which the haunting is by AI, as if it weren't scary enough. Henry is a brilliant engineer who, after untold hours spent in his home lab, has achieved the breakthrough of his career. He's created an artificially intelligent consciousness. He calls the half formed robot William. No one knows about William. Henry's agoraphobia keeps him inside the house, and his fixation on his project keeps him up in the attic, away from everyone, including his pregnant wife, Lily. When Lily's coworkers show up wanting to finally meet Henry and see the new house, the smartest of smart homes, Henry decides to introduce them to William, and things go from strange to much worse. Soon, Henry and Lily discover the security upgrades intended to keep danger out of the house are even better at locking it in.
Wow, I love that. Amazing.
Yeah.
But this next one is for you, Kelly. Um, Next up, we have Horror for Weenies. Everything you need to know about the films you're too scared to watch by Emily C. Hughes. This is a smart, funny crash course in 25 iconic horror movies, from Psycho to Hereditary, for people who love getting the reference but hate being scared. With a rundown of the history and significance of horror cinema, explanations of common tropes, and detailed entries on 25 important movies ranging from Night of the Living Dead to The Blair Witch Project to Get Out. Horror for Weenies will turn even the scariest of cats into a confident connoisseur.
I'm ready for it. I can do that one.
And last, we have legendary voices on audio. First being My Lost Freedom, written and read by George Takei. In My Lost Freedom, George Takei, the renowned Star Trek actor and activist, shares a poignant story, true story, aimed at kids 6 to 9 about his childhood in Japanese American internment camps during World War II. Despite being American, George's family is uprooted and confined in camps after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Through his eyes, readers experience life in the camps and his family's resilience. The book, with its striking watercolor illustrations, teaches about courage, resilience, and integrity amidst adversity. And this one is going to be very good and heartfelt, and really giving us a perspective that we have not seen a lot about. And from one Star Trek alum to another, we have Camino Ghosts, read by uh, Whoopi Goldberg. So, in this new thriller on Camino Island, popular bookseller Bruce Cable tells uh, Mercer Mann a tempting tale that might be her next novel. A giant resort developer is in its political muscle, or using its political muscle and deep pockets, to claim ownership of a deserted island between Florida and Georgia. The only the last living inhabitant of the island, Lovely Jackson, stands in its way. What the developer doesn't know is that the island is remarkable has a remarkable history, and locals believe it's cursed. Um, so Whoopi had this to say about recording this audiobook. This is truly a delicious combination of two of my favorite things, John Grisham and audiobooks. I'm a huge fan of this series, and getting to read Camino Ghosts was, in a word, lovely. So I can't wait to hear that. I'm sure she brings new life to this character.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah. And that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in this time and every time, and we will see you in July.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye,
That was
Thank
fun.
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.